There's no worse feeling than practicing hours and hours every day and not seeing any improvement. In this video, I'm going to be going through the strategies and concepts I've used and seen other people use to break through a plateau in skill. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to like and subscribe and use code Dollafn in the item shop, as that's the best way to support me. A big thing that holds a lot of players back is their ego. Making excuses instead of owning up to the reasons you died or the reasons that you aren't a pro is extremely counterproductive when you want to improve. When you die, instead of thinking what you did wrong, you think about what factors that are out of your control that made you lose the fight. Blaming things like your ping, your shitty PC, or your teammate aren't going to help you improve at all, even if it's true. Just a month ago, I was playing the Squad Cash Cup in the Fortnite OG season. I had 8 kills and one of my teammates had 10 kills, and for whatever reason, I let my ego get the better of me, and in the next fight, I jumped in to try to secure the eliminations faster than him and ended up dying and selling the game. You can't let your ego or your excuses have any factor in the choices and decisions you make regarding your game. The easiest way to recognize when this is happening is by being self-aware. The people that ego affects are the same type of people to not listen when I say this, but truly ask yourself, does your ego dictate any of your decisions? If the answer is yes, then you need to pay attention to how it's influencing your thoughts, emotions, and actions. It's easily recognizable when you feel defensive, competitive, or superior. I see tons of people play so many hours a day and not improve. The biggest mistake these people are doing is they're not being efficient with their time. Instead of spending your time efficiently doing things that you know you need to do to improve, they spend their time on the game playing creative with friends, 1v1ing your friend that you know is better than you. And I'm not saying that these things are bad, but what I am saying is that you can't expect to improve from doing those things. Things like aim training, mechanics training maps, scrims, VOD reviewing, and all the things that we know will make us better, but we tend to avoid because they're less exciting and more boring. The easiest way to be more time efficient is to stick to a routine of things that you know will make you improve. Planning ahead what you're going to do for a day of practice and then executing it is the best way to avoid procrastination and helps you stay more focused and organized. Even if you are sticking to a routine every day, it's still super important to identify and fix your mistakes. The first step to doing this is benchmarking yourself to find out what you fail at. Get a sample batch of gameplay to watch and write down the reason you die. A quick note here is that it's important to find the underlying reason of your death. Instead of just writing, "I got lobbied," you would say, "I rotated too late and therefore I got lobbied." Once you've written down the ways you've died, try to identify the patterns. Fixing one-off mistakes that you don't make more than once isn't an effective use of your time. Try to determine what mistakes happen commonly so that if you fix it, it'll solve the reason behind a reoccurring death. If you're having trouble finding exactly what your mistakes are, sometimes talking to a friend or coach can help you more easily find out what you're doing wrong. Once you know what you've done wrong, now you'll have to try and find the play that you should have done. The best way to do this is by thinking about the possible outcomes of each decision you could have made. Once you've identified them, the easiest way to implement them is by writing them down and then reciting them before each game. If me and my duo VOD review a tournament, we'll write down our biggest takeaways and then recite them right before scrims so that they're actively in our minds as we play. Another reason people plateau and don't improve is because they only practice in creative. I've done an entire video covering how you can implement your creative skills to in-game, but to summarize and expand upon it, creative and in-game are just totally different. Just because someone is good in creative doesn't mean they're too brain dead to place well in game. The muscle memory and the mechanics and aiming is literally just different, so it's super important to practice in-game. So many people play aim trainers in creative and then hop into a mechanics training map and hop into 1v1s and think they've hit everything they need to do routine wise in order to improve. But the truth is that you're not practicing in real games, so why would you see any improvement in real games? Aside from mechanics and aim feeling completely different, a large percentage of how real games go comes down to the decisions you make throughout the games. If you never put any time into practicing those decisions, how could you expect to make the right decision when the time comes for you to actually play a tournament? The next way to push past your current limit is by analyzing your strengths. We already talked about finding your weaknesses and mistakes and improving them, but it's also important to recognize what strengths as a player make you unique. Having extremely good aim and mechanics is useful, but it's not a super unique skill since tons of people are cracked nowadays. Something like top-notch awareness or decision-making skills is something that you can structure your playstyle around. If you know you're the best at some skill like those, you can choose to play around it and then use them to your advantage. Having a unique skill sets you apart from the majority of Fortnite players, and it also makes you stand out more, which sets you up for better opportunities. If you're looking for a duo and you saw 2 people with good mechanics and one with slightly worse mechanics but world-class awareness, you'd obviously want to play with the person with world-class awareness. And lastly, it'll make you less predictable for your enemies. Everyone is used to playing against people with god tier mechanics, but won't be expecting some well thought out, unique play. A reason many people stop improving is because of complacency. Complacency means feeling satisfied with your skill level instead of trying to improve it. Chances are if you clicked on this video, you aren't complacent and are looking to improve. Complacency is bad because it hinders your productivity, stagnates your progress, makes you miss opportunities, and can even lead to regression of skill. The best way to avoid complacency is by always staying outside of your comfort zone. I'm sure you've heard at some point in your life that stepping outside of your comfort zone will lead to growth. This is because seeking discomfort often leads to situations you normally wouldn't be in, which will cause you to gain new skills and adapt. Another way to steer clear of complacency is by setting goals. If you define clear objectives for yourself and regularly assess your progress, it'll be easier to stay on track. Try not to become satisfied with anything because satisfaction often leads to complacency. Progress in Fortnite is never linear. In an ideal world, every time you hopped on and played a tournament, you would get a better placement, but that just isn't the case. Just because your skill level feels stagnant doesn't mean you aren't on the right track to improvement. Feeling demotivated because you can't constantly see results will only lead to even less results. Let dips in your performance motivate you rather than bring you down. Oftentimes, people put their improvements on too short of a timeline to be able to see the strides they're making. For example, in something easier to measure like Kovacs, you might see you have an average score of 100 at the beginning of the month. Throughout the month, you might see improvement so that in the last week of the month, your average is 150. But one day, you get on and are playing really bad, so your score drops to 130. Instead of seeing this as an improvement since you've gained plus 30 score since you started, even on a bad day, you might compare it to the score from the day before and feel demotivated. It's the same for Fortnite. Instead of saying I'm gonna grind every day this week to become a pro and then being disappointed when you aren't a pro at the end of the week, set a goal on a larger time frame to give yourself sufficient time to actually improve. And don't compare yourself day by day, rather month by month or season by season. Consistency is a key to surpassing what you think are your limits. As I said, measuring your improvement over longer periods of time is more accurate, but in order to see the improvement, you need to be consistent throughout those periods of time. Consistency builds momentum, and like a snowball rolling down a hill, regular actions accumulate over time, which leads to progress. You need to have the self-discipline to hold yourself accountable for your goals and commitments. When you practice consistently, it helps you become more confident, which is also a part of getting through a plateau. A big problem that I had was that I was doubting myself, which led to a lack in confidence, which in turn made me play worse and see less results. I had the thought in the back of my mind that I wasn't improving, so I would only see the negative sides of things, which was a super unhealthy mindset for growth. Confidence is important because it puts you in a good mindset to approach challenges with a belief in your ability to adapt and perform. It also directly fuels persistence. If you're confident in yourself, you're more likely to keep trying even if the progress seems slow, since you believe that in the end, the effort will pay off. Confidence allows you to believe in the progress and visualize your success, which in turn will make you more resilient and likely to bounce back from any setbacks. Finally, if you feel like you're doing all these things, a good way to continuously improve is by watching pros. Watching pros will show you the things that you can implement into your gameplay. If you watch and write down the things you see them doing that you don't, you can recite it before you play, like I do with my mistakes, and try to practice them. Learning something new is really important if you want to push through a plateau. So, in conclusion, don't have an ego or make excuses. Create a routine that incorporates things that you tend to avoid that will lead to actual improvement. Find your mistakes and then fix them by writing them down and reciting them before you play. Don't just practice in creative. Find your strengths and qualities that make you a unique player. Don't become complacent. Measure your improvement on a larger timeline to have a more accurate assessment of your improvement. Stay consistent, be confident, and watch pro players. Thanks for watching. Use code Dollafn no long outros. Bye.